Teen Wolf in general is a show that I hold dearly to my heart. It's great to watch on a foggy, rainy day. Through my rewatches, I'm always taking mental notes on each season I watch. And can I also just say, this series aged pretty well considering it's been over with for the past 7 years. Of course, there was the inclusion of the Teen Wolf movie released last January, but we're not here to talk about that train wreck. In today's video, I wanted to focus on the very much needed queerness of MTV's Teen Wolf. I'm sure the main demographic for the show were teenage girls or women in general, but they also had male viewers. My brother was actually the one who introduced me to this show. When I tell you this was the first piece of queer media I was exposed to, it was. Firstly, I wanted to focus my attention to the MLM relationships in the show, or Man Loving Man, with Danny being the first queer character introduced. Danny is gay and everyone likes him. He's got a charm to him. He's nice, kind, considerate. He's a great addition to the show, even as just a small side character. Danny later pursues a relationship with Ethan in season 3, and this season we are also given a much more intimate view of their relationship. My favorite pairing until the showrunners, writers, etc. ripped it out from us. Surely Ethan leaves Beacon Hills because his brother died, but he could have been a great addition. But I'm actually glad they escaped the show before I went completely downhill, although a paycheck is always nice. But after Danny and Ethan break up at the end of season 3, neither of them are seen again until Ethan returns in season 6 as Jackson's partner. They found each other in London, I guess. I'm not going to think too much about it. But after Danny's character departure, we are introduced to Mason, who is Liam's best friend in season 4. Mason and Corey make up our second queer relationship in the series, beginning in season 5. In the show, both are much younger and in love compared to the rest of the cast. Although their romance is cute, the show's drastic turn to gritty darkness overcasts the love that they share, in my opinion. The tone is shifted and it places a lot more harmful pressure on the entire cast before the show flies completely off its hinges for the last 2 seasons. Overall, the inclusion of queer characters and their relationships were a huge part of Teen Wolf and its audience. Although I don't agree with some of the pushing and forcefulness of some pairings, it's clear that queer relationships really thrived with the viewers at home. However, one note that I do have is the lack of WLW relationships, or women loving women, the lack of lesbian couples in the show itself. Teen Wolf captures most of its queerness in the relationships of gay men, but it could have really grounded itself more with the inclusion of some lesbian relationships itself. We do get some queer female characters, such as Caitlin in season 3, who is in fact bisexual. Bisexual representation, we love to see it. Caitlin is introduced with her partner Emily while they are in the woods for a romantic getaway, presumably to push the relationship to the next level, when they are rudely interrupted by the villain of season 3A, and Emily is sadly killed, but we see Caitlin later on in season 3B, where her bisexuality is confirmed with Styles. Another lesbian relationship we are introduced to in a very lackluster and pretty cheap way is through Lydia's grandmother Lorraine in season 4. Lorraine was in a queer relationship with Maddie, her partner, but sadly her partner is also killed off as well. We never get a glimpse of this relationship at all. It's all through Lydia along with a photo. There is nothing wrong with the slight mention of this couple, but the show doesn't do a good job of portraying them as an actual couple. There is no flashback to them sharing moments together or anything really. We never even actually see Maddie's character. I'm sure you're starting to pick up the pattern here, aren't you? The show takes bury your gays very seriously, and I hate that I have to state this, but it does happen quite a bit. The trope bury your gays means, according to Book Riot, it's a trope used in media in which a queer person, often in a romantic relationship, tragically dies. The trope isn't just about death and loss, however, but is often used to undermine queer people and relationships. The tragic death often occurs after a first kiss or sexual experience. By that statement, it's undeniable that that is what's happening here. Three queer relationships end with the death of a loved one or loss in general. Caitlin and Emily, Lorraine and Maddie, Ethan and Danny. Even though this is something I noticed. I still appreciate the show displaying those queer relationships. As someone who is queer themselves, seeing that, even if it was just for a short period of time, it was nice. Do I wish they were longer? Of course I do, but I can still acknowledge that the inclusion of said characters were great. Now, while I do love the show, I think it's also important to note the over sexualization of certain characters. First off, it's MTV, so of course we'll get some close and personal scenes. And I'm not just gluing this word to the show solely, a lot of other teen shows do this as well. Some examples will be Euphoria, Pretty Little Liars. For these shows, I think they tend to forget that they are writing scripts and directing teenage characters. Of course, the actors are adults, but the characters they play are still teenagers. Scott, Derek, Isaac, Peter, Ethan, Aiden, Danny, Jackson, Liam. Each character had a physique they had to live up to, and each of them has had like an ab scene or just a shirtless scene on more than one occasion. I believe Styles is the only character who's never had a shirtless scene, and it's completely fine to show skin. There's nothing wrong with men being shirtless, but it's just the way that they are shot and framed that it's clear the men are supposed to be eye candy. Like I said, there is nothing wrong with showing skin, but keep in mind most of them are still underage characters. During my research for this video, I ran across an article by Advocate that asked the cast what their thoughts are on the LGBT inclusion in the show, and all of them had great things to say. All of them basically say it's great to see and have within the show. They also add that within the show, there's no homophobia. I never noticed this, but they are absolutely right. It's a free space for characters to just be themselves, and I love that. For example, J.R. Bourne, who plays Chris Argent, states, "For so long, there weren't any movies, TV shows, books, or comics for gay people to be able to go and see themselves reflected. So to have the inclusion of gay characters be so nonchalant on Teen Wolf, it's a complete pleasure to be a part of. I hope that this becomes a blueprint for more shows in the future." Teen Wolf has its great moments that aren't all about suffering or trauma, and I'm happy that it got the chance to include queer characters. Also, I forgot to mention this, but in season 2, Scott and Styles head to a key bar where they meet some drag queens who take a liking to Styles, and Scott gets a drink paid for, so icons, I will say. But seriously, I love and admire the show and its capabilities. When I watched the show, I was around 11, I believe. I started watching around season 2, and back then I didn't understand the concept of gay or straight. It was just something that happened, and it was completely normal for me. I had no issue with any of the material I saw, and I love the inclusion it gave. I think I love the show even more now because I'm queer myself, and I love the notion that one of my favorite shows had the heart to include queer characters and relationships, and I love that.